If you notice, we get some. We're getting a lot of natural regeneration where the sunlight is hitting the forest floor. So we've got this right here, this species here, and if you notice, it's got opposite twigs and opposite leaves.
I've got a
So, and it's
down there now.
so. This is you guys heard of the emerald ash borer that's been killing the ash trees? So this is a young ash tree with the opposite leaves. Yeah, that was the other one I was going to point out. Thank you. So the sassafras, it's kind of like a mulberry in that it has three different shapes of leaves. You have a right hand mitten and a left hand mitten. And then you just got the full double mitten, like this one here is a full double mitten. And then you just have a one with no mitten at all also could be. Now this tree right here, this is related to the beech family. We call it blue beech or mussel wood, and the reason we call it mussel wood is because the bark, if you use your imagination, they kind of look like they're kind of mussels sticking out. So this is a blue beech. And they do not get very big. They don't get big like a big American beech tree. They will only get maybe about 12 inches diameter and 20 foot or so tall.
Is mussel wood related to ironwood?
Okay,
or not?
good question. They're both in the understory, and we will probably see some ironwood, but that is a different species.
Okay.
Is ironwood is a different species, and we should see some in the understory.
Okay.
But it's got a very different bark on it. The leaves are similar, but the bark is very different.
Okay.
Now we've already talked about this tree here.
Yeah, the mussels.
Does everybody know this tree? Yep, American beech. It's got the long cigar-shaped buds when it's in the early spring. But they do have beech nuts, and so they do have some benefit for wildlife with the beech nuts that we have. It's like another white oak right here. A lot of white oak up here where we're standing right now. Okay, here's a good understory tree. It looks like we're almost in the tropics with this understory tree. And if you didn't have a mask on, you can pick one of these leaves off and kind of crunch it up a little bit. And you take a smell of it. Kind of smells like diesel fuel.
Gross.
But it really kind of a unique smell. Does anybody know what kind of tree this is? Heidi does, of course.
Is it a catalpa?
No, but good guess, good guess.
Yeah.
This is a pawpaw. You know, picking up pawpaws, putting them in the basket.
Indiana banana.
Yep, the Indiana banana, or if you're in Kentucky, the Kentucky banana, Michigan, the Michigan banana, but Indiana banana has a much nicer ring to it.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, my wife has made a pawpaw pie for me out of a bunch of pawpaws that we've found before. Really good. You can get recipes from, one of the Kentucky State University. Yeah, they have a big pawpaw research and persimmon research going on. down there at Kentucky State University. So they got everything you want to know, including lots of recipes for pawpaws and persimmons.
What does it taste like, a pawpaw?
Oh, it's got its real unique taste. Anybody want to venture?
Light banana, like a banana custard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you either like it or you don't, kind of.
It's got an interesting flower. So the flowers are kind of a dark burgundy color. And they actually use flies as pollinators. So they don't use your standard bee. So their flowers will actually smell like a lot of those that use flies as pollinators. Their flowers will smell very much like carrion.
Yep.
To actually attract those. So they have a really interesting flowers, and it coloring, smell, all mimic carrion or rotting meat.
Really?
So,
Yeah, the flower is only about this big, and it's hidden real well, and they're burgundy in color, but they're only about an inch wide by an inch tall. And sometimes people will hang up like hamburger in sacks, like cheesecloth sacks or some kind of sack that would hold the hamburger or a steak or or something, to try to attract the carrion flies in order to try to get pollination, because it is tough. They do not always pollinate well, and they form big colonies because they have all their underground roots are a lot of them are connecting.
I found a dead raccoon and drug it into my woods.
Did that work?
I'll find out.
yeah. They're also hard to harvest fruit because all of the wildlife beats you to it. The raccoons, the deer love them. And the seed, they have big seeds, almost as big as your thumb. And they're very, very hard casing, and usually they need to run through a digestive tract so that it like scarifies the surface enough for water to infiltrate and cause germination. If you find a seed, you have to sand it real good and try to plant it, or it'll never germinate.
Are there any pawpaw producers here
On this property, I don't know. Okay. They might know. Our property, usually we find them kind of closer to the edges, where I think they get a little more light.
I gotcha.
So.
Okay.
Who was it that mentioned ironwood? Okay. So this is your ironwood here, and this is a pretty big one. So they don't get a whole lot bigger than this, maybe 12 inches, so maybe about twice this size is the ironwood. So you'll find it in the understory with the blue beech or the mussel wood, which we had seen before, but they have very similar leaf shape, but just an understory tree. It won't get big enough to harvest for anything.
What's the difference between that and blue beech?
The blue beech has the wood that looks kind of like mussels. It's also called mussel wood.
Oh.
We saw that earlier. You might see some more of it. And this is just has a kind of a shreddy type bark, but real distinctive bark. And a lot of you probably know what this tree is right here. It's got the shaggy bark on it, right?
Shagbark hickory?
Yeah, shagbark hickory. So there's several different species of hickory. This is the easiest one to tell by its bark. Shellbark hickory, it will also get a little bit of shaggy bark, but the nuts on a shellbark hickory are really, really large. As compared to all the other hickory species that we have. But the one good thing about having shagbark and shellbark hickories in your woods is that it is good habitat, summer roosting habitat for bats. So there's lots of different kind of bats that have their maternity colonies, or they're just in the trees, not necessarily maternity colony, but just a place, can't think of what it's called now, a place to hang out. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah, during the day until
Yeah.
it gets dusk. So these are great trees, and a lot of times a bat can find a good spot up underneath the bark for protection.
So do they produce fruit every year or nuts every year? Or
Yes.
is it, really?
Well, yeah, they should. But I mean, sometimes you have, like my persimmon tree at home, it got that late frost this year in May. And we have that's one reason why if you look on mulberry trees around and persimmon trees, you don't hardly find any because of that late frost
Yeah. Yeah.
on the berries.
Yeah, the reason I asked, I've got a shagbark hickory in our backyard, and last year it had nuts on it, and it almost touched the ground. There were so many nuts on it. But this year it has nothing.
No nuts at all.
Nothing.
Huh.
So
Yeah, I mean, the environmental factors play a big role in that, and the tree will decide if it needs to produce a lot of nuts or not due to environmental factors a lot of times.
Okay.
I've never seen it around here. It's pretty rare, but a bird called a brown creeper has been known to nest on that bark too.
Oh, really?
It's more common north of here, but there have been a few reports of the brown creeper nesting on shagbark hickory.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty unusual down this far south.
Would they do it every night, or would it be just